In a world full of uncertainty in business, government, healthcare, and technology, one element remains consistent, and that's our ability to lead and manage teams through global communications. Only through our deep understanding of the differences in cultural norms and how people communicate throughout the world will we be able to guide teams and build partnerships that can move through turbulence, strife, and economic struggles. We're working to help you achieve all you dream of in success, and part of that is training you to work with your teams effectively. Moving forward with this effort, PMI Portland proudly introduces Lina Mørkbak. Lina brings a wealth of applied knowledge and experimental learning from her work with European and North American clients. She's a strong believer in co-creations with teams and the synergy that happens between individuals who are committed to learn together.
Lina, go ahead and give us a quick outline of your background and who you are and where you came from.
Okay. My name is Lina Mørkbak. I'm originally Danish, but I've been living internationally for the last, coming up on probably 20 years. I'm now based in Portland, Oregon, out by the gorge, and been working between Europe and the US for the last 15 years. So I'm a global business consultant, and I pull on my European background as well as my extensive experience in North America. I do a lot of work in Mexico as well as in Asia and all over Europe. I'm typically in Europe 2 or 3 times a year, so I have clients on both sides of the pond. I got a master's in intercultural communications originally, as well as modern culture and communications. And that's my background, theoretically, my theoretical and my master background. I'm very passionate around having engagement with my participants, and I use a lot of neuroscience theory as my backdrop in terms of how I put together workshops and how I design activities, reflections, learning journals, making sure that what we go through in a workshop really is applicable for the learners in the room. So making sure, yes.
So you're very connected with communities and corporations that support your learning platforms.
Yes. So my clients are pretty much all of them have some sort of a global component. So they're based maybe in the US, but then also have production in Asia, or maybe having R&D teams in Europe somewhere. But some of my clients also work a lot with the virtual component. So how do I make sure that I have engagement across a team that's dispersed, that has many different time zones? And that can also be a team that's dispersed within the US. So having locations spread out within the US itself.
Which is a perfect segue into the next question. What does expand your global mindset mean to you, and what do you hope our audience or the workshop participants gain out of attending the workshop?
Okay, so of course there's many different things I want to trigger in a whole day workshop like the one that we have coming up here in Portland. Overall, when we talk about a global mindset, it's around our cultural intelligence and how we can both be passionate and curious in our engagement with our global components and our counterparts, but it's also around gaining cultural knowledge. So there's kind of like 3 components, so that we want to have that curiosity and compassion and engagement. Then we also want to have the cultural knowledge. We need to have some things that we can trigger onto our brains to make sure that we have enough information and understands why some of our colleagues are doing things maybe dramatically different than we do it, like that their cultural preferences are different. A third component when we have to think about our global mindset or being culturally intelligent is that we want to make sure that we then also link it into actions. So we're not just sitting with our curiosity and then our knowledge, but we're also doing the last step of saying, how can we then change some of our interactions? How can we change some of the ways that we set up our meetings? How can we change, tweak our communication, how we get feedback to each other, so that becomes our intercultural actions as well, so that we're moving forward with the information that we have. So that's that 3 component I often refer to when we talk about cultural intelligence. So in the workshop that we have coming up, that's definitely what I want to make sure that our participants take away. But when we're focusing on the knowledge part, then it's trying to have an understanding, well, am I maybe very focused around getting the task done? Is that maybe one of my big priorities? And then I move straight towards that. But I might have some colleagues or people on my team who are focused more, their priority is, yes, to get the task done, but they also want to make sure that they're getting that trust with each other. They're building the relationship. So you can say that we're a little bit with different priorities, but how can we make sure that we are targeting a good way of collaborating so that we're engaging both our preferences? So
that is challenging.
That can be challenging, and a lot of this is about giving and taking a little bit. It's a little bit of a dance, and of course we want to have a lot of information so that we're in an enlightened place in terms of making some of those adjustments. It would be nice if it was just a do and don't quick checklist, and like in many places in life, when it comes down to these more softer human skills, it's not that simple. So in our workshop, I try to give some references and some tools so that participants in different situations, depending on where their colleagues are from, have a framework to understand, oh, this is where my preferences are. Oh, my colleague's preference is a little bit different. How can we try and meet each other? So a lot of this cultural understanding also comes from self-understanding. What is my own preferences? I might be a little blind to what is just my own hardwiring, and that can be a good place to start. It's like, oh, actually, what are the things that I prefer?
Okay, so and in light of defining self-preference and how you work best with others, I was just also thinking about Americans very intuitively want to understand sometimes not so intuitively, but we want to understand how best to communicate with other cultures. And my curiosity would lie in how other cultures define themselves and view us. You know, we may not understand their mannerisms, their communication styles, but do they take into account how we don't understand them and how they may not understand ours, and how does that work? So to segue into the next question is, what skills and competencies are the most valuable for leaders to ensure that they're meeting their goals on this level?
On this level, yeah. So it's, of course, this is like kind of $1 million question, right? There's a lot of different competencies and skills that's important. I think an overall skill is to making sure that one can shift one's mindsets and one's focus depending on what their need is. Because often we don't know, we need to navigate a space where things are unknown. We're in a very complex global environment. So it's unknown what's going to meet us next. So we need to be able to have that flexibility and say, oh, now I need to move a little in this direction. Now I need to move a little bit in this direction. And this is where I need to tweak a little on my communication to my more direct colleagues in Germany. And, this is where I need to adjust my communication style. So I'm making sure I'm having a good dialogue with my colleagues in Pune, India, who are typically more indirect in their communication style. So that and sometimes we have those cultures on that same conference call, right? So we have to, in some situations, adjust to one side, and in some situation, adjust to another side. So I would say having that flexibility and constantly engaging and practicing, exercising, if you made that muscle of flexing our style, and knowing that sometimes it's flexing both ways depending on what colleagues we're engaging in at the same time. So that flexibility, I think, and that muscle, I think is one key skill.
Well, and it sounds to me an elevated level of communication skills is definitely a must.
Yes. And in some ways, you can say so many things come down to communication skills. But if we kind of open that up a little bit more, it's also, well, we have a tendency to be thinking that, oh, what motivates me must be what motivates my other colleagues. Or a tendency to say, oh, how you create trust and respect each other in the workplace, oh, that's a unifying factor. That must be the same in all cultures. Well, not necessarily. Is it important for me if there is more status and hierarchy that's important in the work culture I come from? It might be very important for me to understand what are people's previous experience. They might need to be endorsed by someone that I already know within my network that I already trust. They might need to be endorsed by someone with a higher title. And when that is coming through, then I feel that there's been established a credibility with this new colleague. In the US, we're typically more around the lines, like if this person follows through, if they're saying that they're doing what they're going to say they want to do, if they are showing actions and initiative and suggestions instead of just listening, oh, then I trust them. But right. there might be a colleague who is going to want to make sure that they're listening for a long time before they're actually coming with suggestions. And then we might sit as American being like, I'm not sure I really think this is a capable colleague, because they're not coming with suggestions, but they're actually very respectful and they're waiting. So those are some of those components that, yes, it's about communication style, but it's really about opening up those layers of underneath. What's important for us to trust each other, and that's not a given. What that is in there's not a unifying factor in all cultures.
What an amazing conversation this is sure to be. We're looking forward to your workshop on November 18th.
Correct.
Yes, I'll put that one out. We're looking forward to your workshop on November 18th from 8:30 to 5. You'll see more information at the end of this video about where and when. Lena, thank you for your time and all of your efforts. And I'm sure this workshop is just going to be amazing.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy your day, ma'am.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.